Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geek podcast. I'm your host, Sebastian. Joel couldn't make it today. He is feeling a bit under the weather, but that's okay because we will soldier on without him. Today on the podcast, I am super pumped to welcome back Patrick and Liv from the Electric Duo, formerly known as the Mach-E vlog. And this is just a very fun episode. Recording this intro after the fact, it's a little out of practice for me, but it is what it is. And yeah, this was a really fun episode to go in. We had some general questions just about, why'd y'all change your name? How does that look? We started talking about they were very lucky to have recently been invited to the Ford Skunkworks EV announcement. And so we talked about that event, what that event was like, what came out of it, etc. We talked about just EV sales in general. We talked about all sorts of random fun topics. This is like an hour-long episode, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So without further ado, let's plug in and get started. All right, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Patrick, Liv, thank you all for being on. You've been on before. What was that? Probably about a year ago?
Or yeah, about a year ago.
Sooner?
Yeah. Thanks for being on again.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Hello.
Yeah. So before we get started, and for those that might not know you all, can you both introduce yourselves and kind of share your background of how y'all got into this whole EV space?
Well, I'm Patrick.
I'm Liv.
In case you're wondering which was which. We just rebranded. We were the Mach-E vlog. So that's where we got our start on our EV journey and our YouTube journey. There we go.
When we reserved a first edition Mach-E, when they were announced, we made the channel, the Mach-E vlog, and thus began the snowball as we became fully enmeshed in the EV world. And it evolved from there.
Yeah. So it's, we've been just like you guys growing slowly year on year. We added an Equinox EV last year. We've been covering like all EVs and EV related tech, including e-bikes and chargers and everything. So we would talk to companies and talk to people, and it was always a little bit confusing because we would say like, we're the Mach-E vlog and here's the Kia EV6. This is the Mach-E vlog. Would you guys like to talk to us about whatever? And people are like, wait, but you only do Mach-E's. I was like, no. So we went through this whole renaming process. I think we reached out to you guys. You guys may have voted on our name change. We try to keep it to a group of people that we knew that sort of understood the dynamics of what it means to do a name change on YouTube, because it's
scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal, right?
We did an industry focus group, basically.
Yeah.
But the Mach-E vlog is what started this passion and the community that's grown from that. And then we started the Mach-E Club America, Mustang Mach-E Club America. And now we're the Electric Duo, covering all EVs. So it's pretty awesome.
Cool. And so since we've already kind of started that discussion, we might as well keep it going. What's your favorite part about creating content around EVs?
There's a lot of good things. I mean, I could go with the obvious stuff of like, it is really fun to get behind the wheel of a different EV, on a regular basis and just try it out and find the good things about it. I know you guys do a lot of EV reviews. I love checking your guys' stuff out. And it's just so fun to like, we can hop behind the wheel of an EV and find the good points about it and just sort of sharing our enthusiasm about it.
I think for me, I'm an adaptive driver. I'm missing my right leg. So I have a prosthesis and I drive with my left leg crossover. So driving is challenging. It's not always easy for me, and getting behind the wheel of a new vehicle can often be challenging. So I think for me, like getting to know a new vehicle is always like, is this going to be comfortable? Is it going to be accessible? And I get excited when something's done really well. And the fact that we get to experience stuff and investigate it and share it with other people, because not everyone, like most people, don't have the opportunity to investigate all this stuff, and probably don't necessarily care to do that with all of this their free time. It's fortunate that we like to do this together. So I get really excited about checking out these things and then being able to share with other people the insight that we've gained so that it could be helpful to them. because we think EVs are awesome. Like, just, by nature, we think they're great. And we're the kind of people who like sharing when we think something's awesome. If you know us, you probably know our favorite band because we share all about it. That's what we do. So, like, getting to share that when we find something that's awesome and being like, oh, ooh, you want this kind of car? Oh, you should check out the blah, like, this is what's going to suit you. And also, like, helping educate people in this way. We have so many different conversations about, the expectation of what amount of range you might need versus what you actually need, and a lot
Right.
of that is like, it's not bad. Like, we did this too in the beginning of like, wait, it has how much range? Is that going to be okay? And then we've driven across the country a bunch of times. So we know it's all good. So it's like taking the opportunity to share that with people when they're new and like being that voice of like, here's what we've learned so you don't have to, or so you don't have
Right.
to feel scared. Like, I think that's really cool. That was a lot of things, but
No, no, I love it. And y'all mentioned before, which I can't remember. I don't think this was the case the last time we had you guys on, but you guys now have a Equinox EV as well. Um, so
Yeah.
what led to that? What kind of talk about how you landed on the Equinox versus kind of other cars that were out there?
Well, I'll go with why we were looking at it, getting another EV, and then you can go into why you picked the Equinox.
Sure.
But we were borrowing a Leaf from Kyle Connor from Out of Spec. He literally had some work done on it out here, and was just sort of like, you guys can use it for as long as you want. And I think we had it for well over a year, and then he needed to get it back to Colorado. So he picked that up, and then it was sort of like, well, one, we were worried about what would happen with the federal EV tax credit last year, because this is like November of last year. So we were already like worried, like, what's going to happen, and we didn't want to be caught up in the mad rush to get the EV tax credit. So Liv started diving in intensely, and was trying to find like used Chevy Bolts and
I really wanted a Chevy Bolt. I really wanted to use Chevy Bolt. Like anything 2019 and up, because like so many of them had battery replacements. If you knew how to look, you could find it.
Oh
It
yeah.
was a really, really, it's a great car, and I would love to own my EV. I wanted something small, but they, kind of jacked up the prices a little, and it was out of my range. So ultimately, our choice was faster than we planned. We were like, we're going to do this whole video series and take people along, and we're going to like test out all these EVs, and we're like, we don't know if the tax credit's going to be there. So let's just like work out the most affordable that we can that's comfortable for me to drive. As I said, that's a challenge. So we literally had a press loan of the Equinox EV. And I should preface, I write for a Girl's Guide to Cars. So sometimes they assign us press loans. So we had an RS trim 2024 Equinox EV in the driveway. And we actually submitted a request to batteries included. And at the time they were doing like battery bargains, and they were like finding deals for you. I'm not sure if
Hmm.
they still do that. Do they?
they do it occasionally.
They do
Yeah,
it
they
occasionally.
not. Yeah,
It was super fun. And they were like, you should do an Equinox EV. There's like a $69 deal. And obviously, that they get you with that, tantalizing deal. But to be completely honest, that's not far off what we got with everything, rolled in. So we basically got the cheapest lease that we possibly could, and a car that I enjoy driving. And incidentally, it has way more range than our Mach-E, which is kind of fun, and not necessarily what we were going for. We wanted like an around town small car that you don't care about that much, like a used
Right.
Bolt or something
Right.
like that, or that can fit into tight parking spaces. And instead, we got something that's actually bigger than the Mach-E,
yeah.
but it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that they're cheaper options like that.
And now our neighbor has one as well.
Matching. Well,
A
it's
matching,
white, but
and
matching.
another Equinox. So it's spreading.
So what
Yeah.
what version did y'all end up getting?
We got the 2LT. For
Okay.
me, some of my sort of requirements are adjustable seat, because it's challenging to find a good position. So the 2LT trim came with the power seat that tilts. And we get the 360 camera, no Super Cruise. Because really, this was an economical decision. We, wanted a second car so that I can have a car, and we didn't need something luxurious. We didn't need something with all the bells and whistles. Even 319 miles of range is excessive for what the purpose was, but the cost was great. So,
And
um,
and it was a front wheel drive version.
yes,
Because again, it's like,
Okay.
don't need the
Right.
power.
yeah.
You know,
So
Right.
so we actually sort of like we did a couple of videos on it, but it was like we got the most range for the least amount of money. So we were like really happy with that. And we're finding a lot of other people that's such a great selling point. And there's still so many good leasing deals that are getting ready to disappear on
Yep.
the Equinox.
to be honest,
Yeah, I'm
actually, a friend
so
of ours,
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Oh, a friend of ours just got a deal that I would have wanted because at the time I kind of wanted the Ioniq 5, but we couldn't get the price down. And she just got a deal on that for less than we paid for the Equinox. So the deals are out there for all the EVs right now till the 30th, right?
Right.
Slightly after.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I just bought a car, and the Equinox was on my short list of vehicles and was really in my consideration, except the inventory started to dry up within a reasonable distance of me, and what was left were in the trim levels I wasn't willing to pay for.
Yeah.
And so,
Gotcha.
but it was in my short list because it's one of the like mental things of all the cars I've driven in the last year. It's one that I keep coming back to of like just being a great all around package. Like even when you start looking at like,
Mhm.
they're really proud of you can get it at 35 grand. So after tax credit, 27.5. And it's like, yeah, that one's missing a pretty decent amount of creature comforts, but you're still getting 300 miles of range. You're still getting a mostly comfortable car that at least has adaptive cruise and blind spot monitoring and all that. Like you're maybe giving up heated seats and dual zone climate, and I'm sure, and a 360 camera. But like, really, if you're talking about 27 grand, there's not anything else out there. I mean, just period.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so, yeah,
that's
it was
pretty
one
amazing.
it's one I kept coming back to, but I ended up I bought an Ioniq 5. I found a great deal on a
Love
used
that.
one here, for 24 grand. And it's
No
a
Oh
way.
wow.
2023, yeah, 2023 certified pre-owned, had 40,000 miles on it, 24 grand out the door. I thought it was a good deal. Anyway,
That's
They're
so
just
cool.
great. They're
so
awesome.
super
Congratulations.
pumped,
That's sweet.
super pumped because that was on my short list again of cars that I just kept coming back to and have recommended to people or whatever. And it was like, okay, I guess I should put my money where my mouth is type situation and actually buy the thing instead of telling everyone else to do it. Of course, we still have our Bolt
Yeah.
too, and that car was bought
Oh,
because it was cheap,
amazing.
and my wife loves driving it because you can literally just put it anywhere because like it's super narrow, it's compact, you know exactly where it's going, it's easy to park, whatever. Anyway, all right, let's talk about some
That's
recent events
exactly.
and some news.
Yeah.
So Ford recently announced big investments in EVs. What are some of the highlights you guys are most intrigued by?
It was interesting because we actually got invited to go to the Louisville announcement. And it was interesting sort of seeing like how it was portrayed. First of all, like I think what Ford was trying to do was prepare the Louisville plant because they're getting ready to retool and they've been fighting for years of like what's going to happen to thousands of employees in Louisville. So they were sort of laying the groundwork for that, but it became this like Model T moment as they build it, which was super exciting. Some people overestimated like what was going to be coming out of that. But if you look at it, it was actually some really, really exciting stuff because, the auto industry in general is changing and, you can look at Ford's current lineup as well as a lot of other manufacturers, and they were trying to sort of make what has always worked on existing platforms and things like that and make their existing infotainment system work. And Ford is like, we're going to go all in. We're going to change the way the car is built. We're going to change the way the uh, infotainment system is built. We're going to change our battery sourcing to locally sourced. And we're going to make it into a platform that is very versatile and something that is not always done. We've seen it like with Kia and VW, but Ford is talking about like this platform is universal in that it could be various body types as well as various countries. So they were very clear about that this platform is very flexible, different motors, different batteries, but the platform itself is very modular. So it was like, it's hard to say like the one exact thing, but it was like you start putting it all together. And that's what I was sort of saying is like, they've been putting the chess pieces out there because we knew about the Michigan battery plant that's going to power their new EV in 2027. We knew that Louisville was getting ready to be retooled. And when they had the contract negotiations with UAW, they sort of promised UAW that it would become an EV plant, but people were worried that that wasn't going to happen. So we sort of saw them putting all the chess pieces out. And then what they did is they sort of like, here they all are. They put them all on the chess table. I was like, this is how it's laid out. And to me, that was the exciting part, putting everything together.
Yeah. So on the subject of that event, I'm just going to jump forward a little bit. So what was the actual, like, what was the atmosphere like there? Like during the event, like, you know, because from what I've seen online, it seems like there's, you know, there's obviously there are media and whatnot, but there are also like people that worked there. Um, so kind of like, how did that feel being in the room as the, you know, as I made the announcement? My invite got lost in the mail,
Uh,
so you're gonna have to tell me about it.
It was absolutely boiling. It was extremely hot in there. That was unexpected.
the, they had a lot of workers there that came over to watch the announcement. And like one of the things that made them very excited is that they're going to have air conditioning when they retool the plant because it was extremely hot there. But I think that's the thing that was sort of missed a little bit is like you sort of saw that workers were there, but they actually had a lot of workers and they were watching the media go through. So it was really exciting to see the workers, you know, like, you know, everybody else is sort of taking notes is like, okay, less fasteners. That's good. And the workers are like, oh, yay. Oh my God.
Yay.
Yay. And you're
Less
like,
twisting and less wow, what percentage of time sitting in the vehicle, like reaching and yay, yeah. I felt like I was a little worried, not worried, but like, you know, we actually like went into the facility and like walked all the way through. It was like a good 8-minute walk to get to where the presentation was. And obviously I'm like head on a swivel, like, whoa, what's happening? And like, I didn't want to be super invasive, you know, because people were working. But everyone I looked at was like, you
and
know, like
waving.
it waving and excited. And I'm sure they've gone through a lot of transitions, clearly transitioning a lot of people in that whole retooling space. But like, it seems like everyone who was there was excited. And even like in the presentation, they had, I think, 6 employees, a couple from that plant and then a couple from
They,
Michigan.
yeah, they had some UAW and some from the battery that were going to be from the battery plant.
And they actually saw the track in Long Beach. So, and they were behind us and they were very excited. And like immediately when everything was done, I actually like went over to them and I was like, hey, so what was it like? Tell us. They wouldn't tell me anything. But
Oh yeah, of
like
course.
they were like, it seemed like they, um, like it was there for an historic moment. Um, it just kind of felt like that a little bit.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and I sort of was talking about like the auto industry is going through a change. And a lot of people are like, yes, we have this very obvious change where we're switching from internal combustion engines to electrified power. But there's also, you know, the way the cars are being assembled is going to be completely different. This modular approach. Because Ford, one of the things that's very clear is like it's going to be a front section, a mid section, and a rear section, and then they're going to bring those together. And we're not talking about like just the fenders; it's like the structural integrity of it, including they're going to do some larger castings, like you know Tesla has already been doing, and some other manufacturers. So there's a manufacturing process, but then again, it's like that software defined vehicle. So there's like all of these different things coming together. It really did feel like this historical shift. And we got to sit in on a round table after you know they took away the cameras and everybody you know sort of dispersed. A lot of the print media was in there and got to talk about it. They were more interested in like profitability and things like that. But some of the things they were talking about is like the manufacturing processes that they are developing in Louisville will be able to be utilized elsewhere within the Ford like ecosystem. So it really is. It's like, yes, it was about EVs, but some of that stuff is like, they're already like, we're going to reduce the number of harnesses and connections across all of our vehicles by what we're learning here.
And we did get to ask questions. We asked, I think you asked about the future of the Mach-E.
Yeah, I knew they wouldn't say like, yes, the Mach-E is going to be built on this in blah, 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 blah. Like I knew they weren't, but I was like, could it be? Which is the same, like,
Right.
they were not, they had their, like, this is all we're going to talk about. And it's fine.
And that was when we also got confirmation that it would be a 400 volt. It was very interesting because like a lot of it wasn't for show. Like a lot of this whole thing was very much for like informing the media and like getting the answers, but it wasn't like flashy.
Yeah. And I think some telling things, and of course, you know, these are engineers working on it. So you could say that, like, you know, if you're working on something, you're inherently like, yes, this is fantastic. But Liv asked about the entertainment, infotainment, whatever you want to call it, systems in this new vehicle. And it was like, can you give us any more about that? And it was just like, and you could tell like the PR person had somebody like touch him on the shoulder, like, don't say anything. And it was
Right.
like, it's gonna be fantastic. And it was like, just like these word things, fantastic. We were talking about trying to get them into information about how it looked or range or anything like that. And they were very clear about, it's going to have like aerodynamics like you've never seen on a truck before. And they were talking about how from day one, they didn't like, here's a truck. Now let's try to like get the aero people in here to make it not look like a brick. They're like, when you embed those people from day one, when you're building a platform from scratch, it pays off. So uh, who knows what it's going to look like, but it sounds like they have completely torn up the script. You know, the other part of the way the auto industry is changing is being able to have that Silicon Valley type mentality that we hear about. And that alludes to the fact that they had a skunkworks team that's been working on this design, and they sort of, as they were clear to emphasize, is like they were given permission to start from scratch, but at the same time have the resources of Ford behind them. And they were also very clear, as in a lot of design things, they go through all these designs and then they show it to like the CEO, Jim Farley. And then it's like, let's change this or let's change that. And then it like, they sort of, you know, restart not restart, but like they, you know, they go back 6 weeks and start again. And they were like, no, that's not how we were doing it. It was like, literally people are working, and at the, you know, every week we have these decisions, and if necessary, we go up to Jim Farley, and it's like a weekly basis. We're making decisions and moving forward, and not like resetting 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago or whatever.
Gotcha. So this is obviously a big deal for Ford, especially kind of looking at the current market. It's no real secret at this point that the current iteration of Mach-E and Lightning have both been losing ground to newer, or maybe not even newer EVs, but just kind of EVs that have kind of continually grown over the years, right? And that's been seen kind of in market share. You know, we've seen kind of sales numbers decrease and whatnot. How do you see this next move kind of positioning them into the market moving forward?
So the Mach-E and Lightning cells, it's sort of like the overall EV industry that I keep, you know, when I talk to my neighbors, because they're like, EV sales are plummeting. I'm like, Tesla sales have took a hit, but pretty much everybody else, they're going up, just not as fast as people like Ford wanted them to. So like the EV sales have steadily been going up, with some dips, like when Ford had to shut down production for a couple, you know, a few weeks earlier this year. Um, but I'm not sure. Do you want to?
I mean, they have to. They have to do this to be competitive. Environmentally, we have to switch to EVs. I think some people feel like it should have come sooner, but it's coming. And Ford is making a huge commitment to it, and a huge financial commitment that's going to take years and years, if not, you know, a decade to see the payoff. But they are investing this. And like Patrick said, the investment of giving the Skunkworks team the time for that kind of free ideation, which is so necessary, and then the commitment of retooling, these are huge things, and it may not be now, like we may have to be patient, but it's what, like 18 months? It's not actually the hugest deal. And so I think they're in the race, right? Because it's the race to bring affordable EVs to the masses, to all of us, and it has to happen. It has to happen. We're seeing the Chinese EVs are going to get here, and ultimately, I think like this is something I feel a lot with a lot of the EV industry stuff is like we're the winners. Us, we're the winners. We are not competing. We want all of the automakers to succeed to give us all more options, right? Like I want a car that I love. In all honesty, I want the Rivian R3X. That would be great, but like we want to see these more affordable, these different body styles that will suit everyone. And so Ford's coming. They're bringing it, and they have to. They
Well,
have to, and it's not actually that far away.
and again, it's sort of like I was talking about them putting all the chess pieces out and together. Uh, they got a lot of criticism because like they canceled the 3-row SUV EV. They've also have delayed the T3 truck to I think 2028 now. So there are some things that are like I get the negative publicity, but I think that something like canceling the 3-row SUV, which I think there would be a big market, but I'm sort of glad that Ford is going like, you know what? There's a lot of competition are going to be a lot of competition in this 3-row SUV market, and they're going to be very expensive, and the tax credit's going away. The way to compete is to go for a $30,000 vehicle without compromises. Now, who knows what the range is actually going to be? It could be like a 250-mile range or something like that. But they seem to be going like, we see that the market is changing. We're not going to continue down this path when we see it changing because we've already invested. Because I think they had like a $2 billion write-off because they canceled a 3-row SUV. And Liv and I talk about this a lot of times. It's
The
sort of
sunk cost fallacy.
sunk cost fallacy. It's sort of like when you're standing in line at Disneyland and you're like you're halfway through like a 45-minute line and the ride closes down and you're like, well, I'm not going to get out of line because I've already spent here 25 minutes. But the reality is like you could be waiting there for like an hour for the ride to come back
Right.
up. So it's like, just move on
Spend your investment wisely.
and cut your losses
Yeah.
and be ready to move on. And it's hard to remember that that's actually a positive trait. And as EV people, I was like, it seems like there is a big need for 3-row SUVs. But then again, it's sort of like, where are the numbers?
Right.
If you think about it, it's like, every time Ford announces anything, it's like, well, where's the electric Maverick? And I'm like, and this sort of goes back to, them saying they're going to have a $30,000 EV truck. Two things. One, the size of it, I think is going to be basically slightly bigger than the Maverick at most.
Mhm.
So this is your electric Maverick. It's going to have more room inside than a RAV4 in the cab. And then the other thing is like everybody went crazy over Slate, because they're like, it's under $20,000 with the tax credit. So
Yeah.
without the tax credit, it's going to be, let's say, $2,750. And at Ford, it's going to go like, we're going to give you $30,000 and you'll have a button to put your windows down. You don't have to crank your windows, and we'll
And you
give
get a
you
radio.
a radio,
Yeah.
and it's going to,
And fully fledged infotainment system with screens, probably, I would imagine.
yeah. So it sort of was like, okay, 6 months ago, we everybody lost their minds over Slate, which we
We
put
did
in a
too. We have a
reservation.
reservation. There's our thing right there. So like all in on all EVs.
But whoops.
Drop my phone. Continue.
um, but it's sort of like could be very groundbreaking, and I really hope that we do see a lot of competition in this lower cost EV market. The Bolt is coming back, and it's like, how can the Bolt come back and be what's it going to do with the Equinox? But it's going to be a very tight market because you're going to have like the Bolt, the Equinox, and the Blazer sort of like in this like fairly tight band. But it's really cool to see, and again, as Liv said, it's like, we're the winners, we're the consumers. We get to go like, well, the Bolt's a little bit too small. Well, how about an Equinox for a little bit more,
And
Right.
also, just as a by the by, more isn't always better in a lot of ways. Like our Equinox being front wheel drive and half the horsepower of the Mach-E less. Um,
About
m- More range, more horsepower isn't better if you don't need it.
Right.
So bringing something to market that like it doesn't seem like it's going to be the fastest charger and have the most range necessarily. We don't know though. But I'm excited to see that there are going to be options that aren't always like more is better, right? Because more power, more range, more size, not necessarily better. A Bolt with 250 miles of range or whatever it is might be amazing for you if that suits you. And that's what we need is more EVs, more styles to suit more people.
Yeah, and it's been very interesting kind of watching all the automakers play it out because Ford has been, I mean, they've been fairly conservative over these last few years, right? They've got their two models. They've come on public now. Of course, we know in the background they've been working on other things, but they, like you mentioned, they canceled the 3-row project. They canceled the T3 truck. It seemed very conservative, kind of on paper. Then you have GM, who's suddenly just basically shotgunning EVs everywhere, just like we're going to build 4 models that are, going to have the Blazer, the Equinox, and the Optic, and all this that are all the same car underneath. And then we're going to do all the trucks and the Escalades, and just like how many models can we put out there to see how many people will buy them? Who knows what's going to stick, but that's
yeah,
what we're doing. And
it's
so yeah,
crazy
it's
how
just been
many
super interesting to
areas
see
put out
how
there.
each of these automakers, because they kind of made a almost a conscious decision, just like, do we just throw things at the wall and see what sticks? Do we take a very cool, collected, like iron out bugs, get things sorted, soldier through? Do we do kind of what Hyundai Kia are doing, where they're having each of them have their models that are the same, the EV6, Ioniq 5, the Ioniq 9, and EV9, whatever, but they're sticking on that very much a normal size crossover and now 3-row crossovers, and that's pretty much it. And then they have the Kona and Nero, which, I mean, they are cars. They're fine. They're not bad cars at all, but they were both originally compliance vehicles. That's what they were built for, which is fine. But yeah, so it's just been super interesting for me watching, just kind of seeing each approach and then wondering what's actually sticking. And on the subject of EVs for mass market, you've talked about it a little bit. What challenges do you think Ford still has before they can actually get that $30,000 price range, or, for the new model?
There are so many obstacles and so many areas where Ford can fail. When we were doing the roundtable, Jim Farley stepped into the room, and so we sort of immediately went over, and he basically made a comment. It was like, the presentation is the easy, the hard part is landing the plane. And like I see like um, getting the plant up and running in Michigan can be a problem because there's actually a lot of opposition to having that built. And I think they're on track. I think they got everything going there. Um, Implementing a new software architecture could be very difficult. We've seen VW like fall flat on their face, and now they're like, "Hey, Rivian, what are you guys doing?" So that could be a very difficult point. Trying to do the large castings could be something that fails, even though Tesla has shown that it can be done, and some others. Um, Completely redoing the assembly, and that's gonna be very difficult as well to actually pull off. And a lot of the automation that they're talking about implementing, uh, they basically are also doing like a zonal architecture, because like right now, there's wires that'll go to like the rear blinker, but also the rear window plus, but now it sounds like they're going to consolidate that a little bit, make it like, some of the newer EV startups, but it's also very complicated. And they've had the suppliers that handled like the door module and the window module and all of these different modules, which complicated doing OTAs. But it's easy to say like, well, we're just going to bring it in house and that'll make it easy. But it's like, well, you still got to actually do all that in house. So let's, you know what I mean? So it's sort of like, I am optimistic by what Ford presented, but I'm sure Jim Farley and Alan Clark and uh, Doug Field they're all like up at night going like seeing all the failure points that they could have.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, let's talk about just kind of EVs as a whole. So this is kind of a question we've asked a lot of people and we've talked about several times in various episodes that we've done. So the EV tax credit's going away, or at least for now. That's no secret. We talked about it earlier. You have till September 30th. Technically you could do after September 30th if you meet the weird loophole that they just put in of putting a deposit on a vehicle, but not a pre-order. Anyway, not going to get into that right now. How do you see that impacting consumer demand? Obviously, we see right now there's a big boom, right, of people trying to get in before it expires, But let's talk about October 1st. What do you think happens October 1st?
Interestingly, Patrick was just on stage at Electrify Expo San Francisco talking about this.
Yeah. I was trying to look past October 1st because October 1st, they're going to crater. It's
Right.
it's going to be very hard for people to go, I'm going to buy this for the same prices I could buy it last week, but now I don't get $7,500 back. Hopefully the auto manufacturers are prepared for that and prepared to put, cash on the hood to move vehicles. But I think it's good. I think the last 3 months of the year are going to be brutal, and that's going to continue. It's going to take a while to recover, but I'm trying to look on the bright side of things. Hopefully people, manufacturers, not people, but manufacturers will start to like, how can we make these things more affordable for people? And then I'm sure you probably feel some of this. It's like, it's sort of going to be nice to talk about like this EV, it's great without like having to break out calculators of like, here, you can do a tax credit, but if you lease it, you get this
To be able
tax
to,
credit. But if you do that, like,
to be
I'm
able to
so
just say
tired
this
of
car
talking about,
costs this much.
yeah. And instead of saying like, you should buy an EV because you can get money back, I want to be able to go like, you should buy an EV because it's about the same price as the gas car and it's better. Like
Right.
you'll have a better experience. Cause that's like, going back to like saying Ford, $30,000 EV truck, if it's comparable to a Maverick that's 28,000, you can start going like, okay, here's why, depending on your situation, I can make the argument that the EV truck is a way better experience for like 90% of the people if they have charging at home. But, you know,
Right.
so I think it's going to crater. It's going to be really rough. Um, and we're actually going to Europe, uh,
On Friday.
on Friday to the Munich Auto Show. So we're going to see what it's like in Europe, but I'm like, they're already double our adoption rate, and it's only going to keep continuing with that trend because same as in the U.S., EV sales are up in Europe except for Tesla. So you'll see some headlines of like EV sales are down in Europe. They're like, no, only one company is down, and even with that company being down,
Right.
overall EV sales are up, and I mean by some great numbers. So I think that's going to continue, um, and I worry about the market in the U.S. But we have companies like GM and Ford that have been around for many, many, many years, that know how to survive. Yes, sometimes with government help, but they have to survive. You know what I mean? It's sort of like they're going to have to survive, and I just hope that as YouTubers that we still have EVs to cover in the U.S. next year.
But
Uh,
ultimately, we know it's a better experience to drive an EV. We tried to cover, ICE vehicles just to see, for a Girls Guide to Cars, cover ICE vehicles just to see and be aware of what we're missing and not be totally blind. And it's just hard not to experience that as a worse
right.
experience. That ICE just is inherently less enjoyable than EV. So ultimately, like, it's a real bummer. We want to make this more accessible, more cost effective, something that more people can afford, that it's not a luxury purchase. So it's a bummer that there isn't going to be any incentive. And at the same time, the silver lining or the good side of it being, it's still a better experience. It's still an experience in which you can control the cost of your fuel. You have some way to control the cost of your fuel. Even if you live in a multifamily dwelling, we were just in the Bay Area, filming with Pando Electric, and they have a cool announcement coming September 23rd. So there are ways coming for multifamily dwellings, people in apartments. If you are able to charge at home already, you can energy hack. Like, you don't have that ability with gas. You are completely dependent on other things. There's like so much about the EV experience which is more enjoyable and offers more freedom. And I think that's something we really like in this country is freedom. And as people realize what they get with an EV, no matter what, I hope it picks up again.
Yeah. And even if you kind of take the focus off new cars, we've had a lot of good conversation with our friend Colin, who has he runs Evolve Auto here in North Little Rock, Arkansas. They do used EVs. That's their whole stick. They only sell used EVs. He actually thinks by getting rid of the used EV tax credit, we'll see pricing return to more normalcy on used EVs. Because what he's finding at auction is these cars are going for 25 grand or 24,999 just because the dealership wants to be able to buy them and sell them and say it's a $20,000 car that they then make a $4,000 profit on type
Yeah.
situation.
Mm.
And not only that, because like we know those people, not us, that buy a car and then next year they sell it and they buy another new car. But they're buying the car for $60,000, and then in a year they're going like, "Oh my God, look how much value I lost on my car." And I'm like, that's because everybody knows you probably between state and federal, you probably got 10,000 off of the car.
Right.
So you're thinking of it as a 60,000 car, knowing good and well you didn't pay 60,000 for it, you paid 50, and it had $10,000 in appreciation, which is normal. But you're going like, oh my gosh, I lost $20,000 in 1 year. I was like, no, you really
Not
didn't,
really.
and you know that.
Yeah.
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 So again, it also then makes the calculations like we don't have to worry about any of that. It's just like this is what I paid.
And
Yeah.
the jacking up of the price, that's why we didn't buy a Bolt.
Yep.
A used Bolt was that we found consistently that the price was raised and it was just kind of hard to stomach.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And that's, again, you mentioned earlier, it'll be nice to be able to look at a used EV and say, oh, this is a $20,000 car. That's not, it's listed online for 20 grand, but it's actually 24 grand because the dealers snuck that tax credit in there and didn't
Yep.
tell you. Or it's a $24,000 car, or, oh, they're advertising with the tax credit, but it's costs more than it would qualify, like it wouldn't qualify. So they just don't know if they're due. Like, it'll be nice to be able to look at cars and say, this is a $16,000 car. Great. The end.
Want to get rid of the need for an accounting degree to talk
Yeah.
EVs, you know?
And a
Like, it's
CPA to
like,
do
oh,
your
it's a Bolt.
taxes. And yes.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting thing. I live in Arkansas, so this will never apply to me. Do you think we see states step in with incentives once the federal credit actually goes away?
I do, because we live in California.
Yeah.
But we have seen like most of the great EV deals we've seen is actually in Colorado, because Colorado is leading the nation in some of these tax credits. So I don't know, but I think it's a very interesting thing.
I was just gonna say, if you're in Colorado, go get an EV right now. Like, just no brainer.
There's no excuses.
It
Yeah.
really is crazy. Yeah, and I think it's sort of interesting. I think some states that like to invest in their future will be the types that will be like, what can we do to make some type of tax credit? States that won't do that, and it's unfortunate that it's like a state by state basis, because a lot of the negative effects of gas aren't necessarily like localized, so it's sort of it's like I'd love to see some of these other states sort of understand and realize the benefits. It's like our friend, she's involved in the New York State area in getting electric school buses. And she says it's crazy because like some people are like very much like, oh my gosh, like my kid is literally sitting there on the bus as it's idling, waiting for everybody to go, just like sucking in diesel fumes. So yes, we definitely want to go with the EV bus. And then they start going down that road and everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe the school district is going to waste money on an electric bus. It's going to die in the winter. My kid's going to have to walk to school. And
I want the medical stats, because you'd have to assume that incidence of asthma and things like that would decrease without exposure to stuff like that. every single day, like 5 days a week, grow like, your whole childhood.
And we went to ACT Expo and we found that like some of the school districts that are trying to invest in electric buses, they're going, oh my gosh, this could actually almost be a moneymaker for us because the buses are needed in the morning and in the afternoon for a couple hours. But you can do some stuff like there was one school district that was looking into buying buses because they can buy electricity at night, store it in their buses, run their route, and then number one, it serves as a backup power for the school, but it also can feed into the grid during peak hours. So they're like,
Oh
every
yeah.
day we can make money off of these. And for like like an individual, like you wouldn't make a vehicle decision based off of that. But when you're have a fleet of vehicles and you're like, well, each one can make us like $5,000 a week or whatever. So whatever the cost may be, I have no idea. I just threw a stupid number out there, but
I hope it's that much.
but you know what I mean? It's sort of like they can calculate it out. And it's the same thing with fleet customers on a lot of things where they start calculating it out. It, when you're trying to buy a car, you're literally like, how much monthly payment can I afford? Bottom line. But our friend that Liv was talking about, just that got the Ioniq 5, she like did a calculation. It was like the money that I'm not going to be spending in gas will be my car payment.
And her boyfriend's a math nerd, and he did like a whole spreadsheet.
But it's like you can literally get instead of like a 10-year-old car that had all sorts of maintenance problems and oil changes and all of that. She's like, I can get rid of that and just pay for electricity. That's a minor increase because Colorado also has some really, really cheap charging, as low as 3 cents per kilowatt hour
Oh
overnight.
wow.
Yeah.
Which, if we tell you the California rate, will make more sense why that sounds crazy. So,
Our overnight is high 20s.
overnight.
So that's
Overnight.
about
That's
double.
very high.
If we plug in
That's,
right now, it's 60.
Before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 64 or 60?
It's 60 and 64. I didn't want to
Yeah.
say 6. Like it's insane.
Turn
But we
the
have
lights
solar.
up. Why do we have the lights? No.
We pay, or at least I pay at my house 11 cents, just all the time.
Straight up. Yeah.
So we're moving in.
Yeah.
I mean, the shed's like 8 by 12. I'm sure y'all could make it work.
Done.
But no, so yeah, that is all, I mean, really good kind of considerations to think about. We've got a couple of districts in Arkansas that are starting to move into the electric buses, and y'all are talking about just seeing the crazy, or hearing the crazy responses and stuff. I remember I was reading on of course, it was a local news station that posted it, which is always where you find the best Facebook comments, is under the post of anything that your local news posts. And they made a post saying the Little Rock School District was buying, I don't remember how many electric school buses they bought. And I remember someone in the comments said, oh, so they're going to have our kids sitting on these highly flammable lithium batteries.
Yeah.
It's like, how does a diesel
So-
engine work? How does a gasoline engine work?
Yeah.
By literally blowing
I
it
just
up.
saw 1,000 times per minute. Denver just posted like on 9 News, like their local news. They just installed 60 level 2 chargers at the basketball stadium, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's really great. That's like the perfect opportunity, to charge. Like you're going to be at the game for 3 hours and you get 60 plus miles of added, and you get good parking. Like perfect. Let me go into the comments and say, oh no. It was so horrible. Like you would have thought that like communist China had taken up residence at the basketball arena.
You probably wanted
Yeah.
to battle them all and try to correct them. But that's why doing the YouTube is nice, at least we can just put this stuff out there and hope for the best.
I was going to make a comment and just sort of share and go like, if you are making these type of arguments, you're not smart. you're basically just spreading false information. A friend of ours, like a good friend of ours, that bought a Nissan Ariya, his mailman said that because when the Trump administration was looking at canceling the EV delivery trucks, he said his mailman told him that they have been a disaster. They're pulling them out, and that all of the chargers are actually being run by diesel generators because they couldn't figure out how to connect them to the grid or something. And I was like, no, like here's the IG report, here's the news report, here's the, and it kept on going on. And he was digging his heels in. It was literally like, nobody knows anything but my mailman that delivers my mail to my house knows better than all of them. And I was like, it was so hard to refrain from saying like, and if you go to McDonald's and the guy's like, hey, the McRib is coming back, and McDonald's is going to introduce a new product next week, you're going to take that as gospel over what the company is saying. It just is like, no offense to the mail guy, but he's wrong.
I think a lot of what we do, all of us in this community, like us in the content that we share, but all of us too, like EV drivers, we all probably have to do this in our communities, is like dispel the myths, right? And like I'm sure all of like people listening, we've had people say, how long does it take you to charge? Like
Yeah.
hours on a road trip? Is it hours? And it's like, no, fast charging, level 2. Like it's okay. It's okay. Because we're re-educating. And there's something you said earlier, which it tickled me. It's just that fleet and school buses and things like that, they know exactly what they do, how far they drive. They know exactly the routes people take. They know the behavior and all that. Us as humans, we don't necessarily, and we're not that good, I think, or not as good as assessing that, right? We might overinflate the importance of a once or twice a year road trip versus like how often we plug in every single day and the convenience of doing that over never, ever going to a gas station. Or like when we lived in Colorado, never being stuck filling up in the snow, or, when it's icy or rush hour traffic. Like those are hard things to relate. And it's understandable that people don't necessarily get that, right? We're not fleet. We don't have this all written down. We're going of anecdotes and assessments and all that. So I think it's important that we share the truth.
But the story that I've told numerous times, I may have even told it the last time I was on, was we used to be like EV coaches in Colorado, meaning we put our car on display and answer people's questions. And I learned something very valuable because that was when we had our Mach-E first edition, had 270 miles of range. And people would ask constantly, how much range does it have? 270 miles. That's it? Like, I'd say like 3 out of 4 people were like, that's it? But then after we did the Race to Vegas on the Out of Spec channel, I would bring up like, well, the first time we needed to stop and charge was Glenwood Springs. Now, most people in your audience probably don't know where Glenwood Springs is, but it's 180 miles from Denver. So when I said our first charging stop was at 180 miles, people were like, wow, you made it all the way to Glenwood Springs? And I'm like, it's way less than 270, but if I say 270, you'll go, that's it?
Right.
And now I think something we do often is we live in SoCal. We drive to Vegas sometimes. It's 400 miles. No, it is the long route.
No, that's the Bay Area. It's 300 and something.
300 something. Anyways, we charge once.
Oh, it's actually like around 315 because I was like, the Equinox could technically do it.
Oh, make it the whole way.
If we drive 50.
We're like, we drive to Vegas and we charge once. And everyone in SoCal knows the drive to Vegas. And the idea that you charge once, it's like, well, I'm definitely going to have to go to the bathroom on this drive to Vegas, this 5-hour drive. So it's like, I just wrote an article on the EX30 and I was chatting with my editor and she was like, well, how do you feel about the range? Because it's only 253 miles range and she doesn't drive electric. So she's asking me that and I'm like, it's inconsequential. We have a Mach-E. It has 260 miles of range. It's completely inconsequential. We know that that's fine. But to someone who doesn't drive electric, even someone like fully in the car industry, and she's like a car industry veteran, even to her, it was like, is that okay? Is that enough? And it's new. It's new. It's all new to people. And it's relating things in that way. It's Glenwood Springs. It's one stop to Vegas, whatever.
Right.
Or it's that you like saying when people are like, how long does it take to charge? And he's like, a burger and a pea.
Which confuses them, but then it makes a lot of sense when I go like, I plug in, I go get a burger. go to the bathroom, come back, car's ready.
And
Yeah.
instead of being like, you go fill up and then you park and then you go get your burger and go to the bathroom, it's like you're just plugging in and doing the same thing. It's all
Right.
these new educations or
Yeah, and
new learnings, I guess.
my Glenwood Springs would be saying like, oh, I can get to Memphis, and it's like one stop to Memphis or one stop to Northwest Arkansas, or just things like that, like distances that people know when you think about it. It's like, oh, that's like a 3-hour drive. Yeah, I'd probably stop 2 on a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Also
Um,
sounds like a good album. One Stop to Memphis.
There was
doesn't it?
somebody I had a conversation with online, and he was talking about range or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I don't care one bit. I have a kid, and it's like, if
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't stop every hour and a half, I'm like,
I'm at that
so
phase
sort
of my
of,
life. Yes.
yeah.
Uh,
And as long as you have, and this is something that's I think is important and overlooked, is like good amenities at charging stops, meaning a place for the kids to get out that's not like a giant parking lot, a place for the dogs to do their thing,
A bathroom.
a bathroom.
Trash.
Then these charging stops are great.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a 3-year-old. Anytime I stop the car, it's for more than 15 minutes. So there's no getting around it. Like, you get out the car seat and then it's just a whole thing. Like, as soon as the seatbelt's unbuckled, you're not getting back in the car for another 20 minutes. That's just how it is.
And then you're fully charged.
And even going,
And then you're fully
we went to
charged.
the Bay Area, like, yeah, we went to the Bay Area like a week and a half ago, and one of the places we stopped, I was like, let's go to the bathroom, and there's a Starbucks. Let's get a Starbucks here. And I'm sitting there in my mind, I'm like, okay, we're definitely going to beat the car this time because it's just a coffee. It's not what. And it was like, it was the slowest coffee line ever. And then we get back and I'm like, we're at 84%.
Somehow we always go over it too. Cause like also charging stations are fun. If it's not too hot or not too cold, especially like CCS charging and now Tesla superchargers where you get variety of EVs. It's always like, ooh, who's pulling in? Ooh, what's that? Like we were at a supercharger, where were we? Lebec. And there was a liquid IV Rivian.
Oh, nice.
I'll send you the photo. It was super sweet. It was super sweet. I was like super creepy and I like went and stood by the window and they didn't talk to me. I like waved and I didn't want to talk, but it had like a splash coming out of it.
Yeah, it was a promotional
Nice.
truck.
Yeah.
So the truck, they made it where it looked like the truck bed was full of water and that the liquid IV landed and it was splashing it out. So it was the coolest looking promotional. It's sort of like, Red Bull does with the can,
But
Right.
basically, I get distracted by stuff like that, or like, "Ooh, hello, how do you like your EV?" It's
Yeah.
the new
Yeah,
water
I mean-
cooler.
I mean, I literally do that. We were at the zoo yesterday, right? Yeah, yesterday was Monday. Anyway, we were at our zoo Monday, and they have 4 level 2 chargers out front. And so we had parked, and as I'm standing in line trying to go in, I'm just like watching the park. I'm like, oh look, another Ioniq 5. Oh, they're not charging. Weird. Oh look, a Rivian. Oh look, it's just constantly just playing the game of like, oh look, that's cool. Oh look, that's cool. And my wife's just sitting there going like,
Yeah.
We laugh at each other because we'll be like sitting outdoors somewhere, and then you hear the sound of an EV, and we're
It was
both like mid conversation.
you hear the sound of angels ascending, and you're like, oh wait.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what it's like in Munich because we've heard so many things about EV adoption. I want to see it in person and see some small, a little bit smaller E EVs.
I'm also like, I've been, it's sort of like being on a diet and you don't look at all the candy and the chocolate and the food you can't eat, right? So like we've been on a diet here and that we can't get a lot of the cool European EVs and the cool EVs that they have access to. So I've been like trying not to look at them. It's like, that's amazing. Thank Ford Puma. So I see you. Stop it. Stop. And then now we're going there and dessert is everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like fully not prepared for this and I might lose my mind a little bit.
I think she was texting the airline, can I bring back an EV in my carry-on luggage?
How big can my carry-on be? Or my check luggage?
All right. Well,
Not really.
Liv, Patrick, it's always a pleasure to have you guys on. Before we leave, is there anything you guys want to plug before we sign off?
Ooh.
You guys, thanks for
Yeah.
having us on. We really appreciate It's always great to connect with other people in the EV YouTube industry. Hopefully we get to do some events together sometime soon.
We were actually on Transport Evolved earlier. They're having a membership drive, and we gave you guys a shout out there. So I love that the EV community, we all know each other. We all are supporting each other. It's super cool. I would give a shout out to the Mustang Mach-E Club of America. If you are a Ford EV enthusiast or Mach-E owner and enthusiast, come join the club or join FordEVClubs.org.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna
there.
I was gonna say, I was like, you also have that cool website that I get emails from now.
Hey.
Yeah,
It's our social
it's
network without social networks, so we can all come together, help people network across the country, have meetups, find their local community and stuff like that
with no ads so
with
far.
no ads.
Nice. All right. Well, for our listeners, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification icon before you leave today. Also, make sure you go to subscribe to The Electric Duo on all the various platforms so you can keep up with what Patrick and Liv are doing. You can find a link in our video description. We will see you again on another EV Geek podcast episode. So long, everyone.